Right, okay guys, so anyone who's been watching the channel long enough would know that I'm a massive Star Wars fan. Although, I think a lot of you would also know that I've not been as much of a fan in recent years. And that's namely down to the sequel trilogy. So what I thought is, as Andor's just come out, something which I actually thought was pretty good. Don't get me wrong, it's not the best Star Wars ever, but it's a step in the right direction. So I thought, as that's come out, why don't we go back and have a look at some of the problems with the sequel trilogy? The Force Awakens. A terrible rehash of A New Hope, placing characters that had arcs in the original trilogy back to square one while heavily relying on nostalgia. The Last Jedi. A very long, drawn-out car chase in space with a side order of capitalism is bad and a terrible rip-off at the Battle of Hoth. Rian Johnson says he was subverting expectations. I say he was taking a steaming pile of excrement on the franchise. Common thread in this movie is, let the past die, kill it if you have to. Totally opposite message to The Force Awakens. The Rise of Skywalker. A hot mess, proving there was never a plan for this trilogy. A desperate attempt to do a 180 and fix the problems that The Last Jedi caused. This film races at 1,000 miles per hour from one place to another, not giving you a chance to think. This turns out to be deliberate because if you did get a chance to think, you would realise how nonsensical this film is. Oh guys, you remember how you liked Star Destroyers? Well, ours are better. Oh, and TIE Fighters, you love TIE Fighters. Yeah, ours are better. Oh, X-Wings, let's not forget X-Wings. These are better too. Ah, Stormtroopers, who wants the old look? These ones look much better. Oh, and you remember how you liked R2-D2? You was wrong. BB-8's better. Oh, and the Walkers, remember the Walkers? Ah, these are bigger and better. Oh, and you remember that Luke Skywalker? Forget him. Let's have Mary Sue Ray. Oh, Vader. Yeah, best villain ever. Ah, Kylo's better. Oh, and that thing called the Death Star, ridiculous. This one's bigger and better. Oh, wow, an ex-Stormtrooper turned good. Won't matter, we won't dwell on it. Oh, you remember this big bad we built up? Doesn't matter, we kill him in the second film. Oh, General Hux, we turn him into a joke and replace him in the last film. Oh, Mars Kanata, who's she? Doesn't matter, we won't find out. Oh, and she's got Luke's lightsaber from Empire. How'd she get it? Doesn't matter. Oh, and you remember these guys, the Knights of Ren. Well, don't worry about them, they die quick. Oh, who's this shiny chrome stormtrooper? She looks interesting, looks really good in the trailer. Captain Phasma. Well, I'd love to find out what's going on with her. Oh, okay. She's going to die in the second film after you brought her back. Okay. Oh my god, Rey's just killed Chewbacca. Oh, never mind. Rey's dead? Rey's dead? Oh, no she isn't, don't worry. Chewie walks past Leia after his friend, her husband, dies, and Leia hugs Rey for some reason. Luke isn't shown until the end of The Force Awakens. Luke throws a lightsaber. What? These are the slowest bombers in all of Star Wars. Gravity in space. Ships run out of fuel now. Why is Luke drinking green titty milk from a space walrus? Mary Poppins. I'm a great leader you've never heard of, and I won't tell anyone what the plan is. Canto Bight. Just why? Hyperspace Ram. Why did they bother with attacks on Death Stars? They could have done this, apparently. So Luke never gave up on his father, but he gives up on his nephew. Force Ghost can command lightning now. Finn goes to lay his life down to save the Resistance. Rose is selfish and rams him out the way. Luke dies, but not in a proper battle with Kylo Ren. No, he goes out like a punk. He dies because he projects himself across the galaxy to trick Kylo. Sounds stupid even saying this. Palpatine's back. We won't explain how. And guess what? Anakin isn't the chosen one anymore. They fly now. We already knew this. The Death Star 2 half survived without destroying the planet it landed on. Hello, science. The dagger is a map. Oh my god. You remember the First Order? Well, forget them. The Final Order is better. And it has red stormtroopers. Take out one Star Destroyer and the others fall, for some reason. Remember Rey needed a device to get to Exegol? Well, the fleet don't. Rey reflects Palpatine's lightning and he dies almost instantly. If only Vader or Luke knew that. Right, let's start with Han Solo. It would appear that his arc in the original trilogy was all for nothing, because in this series of films, he went straight back to what he was before, a smuggler. All his development that went on in that original trilogy was all for nothing. And let's look at Chewbacca. Well, he goes from being Han's lovable sidekick to the bus driver. That's basically what he is in this trilogy, a bus driver. Now, I'm going to mention this character, not a main character by any means, but an important character nonetheless. Admiral Akbar. Now, he was instrumental in Return of the Jedi. He is one of the big reasons why the Rebel fleet win. And how do they get rid of him? Well, he has an off-screen death. I just thought that was really disrespectful and also very hurtful to the franchise, because he played such a significant role in Return of the Jedi that if you was going to kill him, it should have at least been on screen. And then we got Princess Leia. I really don't think a lot of what they did with her was good. If you want to look at, for example, where she hugs Rey instead of Chewbacca after Han's died, makes no sense to me. The Mary Poppins flight, another thing that makes no sense. The fact that she spends a lot of The Last Jedi in a coma, and a purple-haired lady takes over, who we've never seen before. And don't even get me started on that. There were so many things they did wrong. And like I've said already, her amongst a lot of the others, they just disrespected a lot of these characters. Right, well, as we're talking about all the other characters, we've got to get to our main hero, Luke Skywalker. There's a lot to be said about Luke Skywalker. You know, as a kid, he was my hero. Star Wars was a big part of my life and the first franchise I got into. So as you can imagine, Luke Skywalker was very important. Unfortunately, this trilogy went out of its way to wreck his character. There's so many things that you could note. I mean, this is a character that didn't give up on his father and refused to kill him and wanted to turn him back to the light side. He was full of hope, only to end up in the sequel trilogy a miserable old man who tried to kill his nephew. Absolutely makes no sense to me. And we've heard Mark Hamill in his own words even say it wasn't his Luke Skywalker. And he's right. It weren't our Luke Skywalker either. And then we have Anakin Skywalker. Now this guy isn't even in this trilogy. But they still managed to screw him over nonetheless. Because now, you can't really say Anakin's the chosen one. It also means that Anakin's sacrifice at the end of Return of the Jedi is all for nothing. Is he the chosen one? No, he's not. He didn't end the tyranny of the Sith. Because when he threw him down that pit, the Emperor just transferred his essence. Ridiculous. So when you look at it, in 3 really bad movies, they managed to wreck the previous 6. Good job. You just took a massive dump on all of George Lucas's work. And of course, the biggest tragedy of them all. How can you do a sequel trilogy where you're passing the torch over from the old legendary characters to the new characters? How can you do that without having all of them characters in a scene together? Can you believe that they did an entire sequel trilogy and you didn't at any point see all of these characters in the same room? I think that is the biggest disrespect and misstep you could ever make in any franchise, let alone Star Wars. So, in closing, what went wrong? Well, for starters, we had 2 directors. One being somebody who can't tell a good story and everything's mystery box, and one who didn't care about the franchise and in fact seemed to go out of his way to wreck it. The other thing that was really a problem with this trilogy is that you had 2 directors who didn't know what came before, had no idea of the lore or the universe that they were dealing with, and didn't respect the characters from the original trilogy. Another thing you'll notice also with this trilogy is there's not really any references to the prequels. Now, alright, you could say that there are people out there that still don't like the prequels. Although I would argue they probably see them in a better light now since the sequel trilogy came out. This is my point. You ended up with 2 directors and a bunch of writers who had no idea what they were writing, what story they was telling, and as we know now, and we knew anyway, but it's been confirmed now, there was never a plan for this trilogy. And man, does it show. I mean, what an absolute mess. Let's be honest, this was never going to be a good trilogy if you didn't have a start, a middle, and an end in mind. If you just make it up as it goes along, it's not going to make any sense. I think the first indication that there was no plan was when Ruin Johnson did The Last Jedi. Because let's be honest, he left that film in such a mess. Anybody who came along afterwards, well, let's be honest, there was no way of fixing it. I always say this, The Rise of Skywalker is not a good film. Pacing's off, it flies around at 1,000,000 miles an hour. It's not a good film. However, what did we really expect? What could he do after Ruin Johnson's The Last Jedi? It was going to be bad no matter what.